today's video, we install a supercharger on our small block Chevy powered Jaguar, and it's good.
Time your engine to top dead center, compression stroke of number 1 before you remove your distributor. Put a piece of masking tape on your distributor and mark where the rotor is pointing. Will really help you get it timed very close your very first try. You can then remove the distributor. You can then remove the carburetor. Drain your coolant, remove your hoses, and then remove the intake manifold. Clean up all your gasket surfaces. And then remove any debris that was left over. You can use a shop vac with a smaller hose shoved in the end to reach any smaller areas that you can't get to. You can then reinstall your gaskets. I like to use a product called Edelbrock Gasket Cinch. It's essentially a contact adhesive, but it's compatible with gasoline, whereas RTV is not. Otherwise, generally all you need is a little RTV just around the water ports, and you do not want to put RTV around the intake ports as it's not compatible with gasoline. You do want to use a healthy bead of RTV on both of your ends. Place your intake manifold in, trying not to get into the RTV until you're square with the block, and just drop it straight down lined up into the RTV so you're not moving it around. After your intake's in place, snug the bolts down evenly and then torque them in an even fashion to draw the intake down evenly. Then you can install your supercharger on your intake manifold. Torque your supercharger bolts to 12 foot-pounds. Install your crank pulley over the top of your existing crank pulley. I had mocked this up prior and made sure the belt alignment was proper. And then you can install your belt. And then release your tensioner. We made a few modifications of the carburetor. We deleted the secondary power valve, put a block off in, jetted that up like 10 sizes, and then I bumped the primaries up a few sizes. I also blocked off the primary port that feeds the power valve inside the carburetor and added an external port so that I can reference the power valve from below the supercharger. After those modifications are complete and the carburetor is back together, we can reinstall the carburetor. This is the modification on the power valve. Reinstall your distributor, lining up the rotor to the marks you had made prior. I had to make a new upper radiator hose out of some exhaust tubing, as my old one didn't fit anymore. After making the last of our connections, running all of our hoses, we can then fill the radiator with antifreeze. We're now ready to start the engine for the first time. Set our initial timing. I'm going to set it for 25 degrees before top dead center for the total timing. That's when the distributor's at full advance. We can then set our baseline carb settings, curb idle, and idle mixture. Top off the coolant now that the thermostat's fully open. We're also going to throw a little octane booster in the tank. The pulley setup that's on this Supercharger, I kind of expect to overdrive the blower a little too much. So that's why I'm adding octane booster and also setting the timing so conservatively. We're now ready to take it on its first test drive. First couple of times I dipped into the throttle, I was watching my air-fuel ratio gauge and not the blower gauge. It was only now that I realized that we're hitting almost 10 pounds of boost just cracking into the throttle, which is way too much for this engine. I did go ahead and put a few miles on the car, just kind of putting around, but really couldn't get into the throttle with it making that kind of boost. Had to order a larger top pulley to bring the boost down to a more reasonable level. By the next weekend, the new pulley had come in. We're able to swap that out. Pretty simple. Loosen the bolt before you take the belt off, then release the tensioner, take the belt off, take the pulley off, slide the new one on, and then reinstall your belt. After a few test drives and some tuning changes, it's running really well.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.